In the previous lecture, I had defined two types of statistics. Let me recall those things. So, we are considering that a random sample x 1, x 2, x n is taken from a CDF f x, and y 1, y 2, y n is a random sample from a CDF g y, and we also assume that the two samples are taken independently. Then, based on the empirical distribution function of first sample, we define u I is equal to f m of y I, and similarly we define u bracket I is equal to f m of y of bracketed I. Here again f m is the empirical distribution function of the first sample. So, this is the number of x j's less than or equal to y I, and of course, divided by m, and here it is the number of x j's less than or equal to y I divided by m, and both u I and u bracket I, they take values 0, 1 by m, 2 by m up to m minus 1 by m 1, and we considered the forms of the distributions of u I and the distribution of u bracketed I. We also considered the special case when f is equal to g. Now, let us and we also considered the joint distributions of u I, u j, u bracket I, u j. We also looked at the moment structure of these quantities. Let me now proceed from here. So, first thing is that we considered the joint distribution of u p and u q. Now, I look at the distribution of the difference. So, we have the following result. We will now show that the distribution of u q minus u p is the same as the distribution of u q minus p. So, for that let us consider the distribution of u p and u q. So, u q minus u p is equal to say something like k by m. Since the values taken by these are of the form p by m, so we can consider like this, the difference is that k by m type only. So, that means, one of them is say I by m and the other one is of the form I plus k by m, where I is varying from 0 to m minus k, that is equal to. Now, here I write down the joint distribution of this, which we derived in the previous lecture. Let me recollect that thing. The joint distribution of u p and u q. So, the values taken are j by m and l by m, then it is given by this expression j plus p minus 1 c j and all these things. So, here for j I will substitute I, and for L I will substitute I plus k. So, when we do that, we will get the expression as I plus p minus 1 c I, m plus n minus I minus k minus q, c m minus I minus k, I plus k minus I plus q minus p minus 1 c I plus k minus I is equal to 0 to m minus k divided by m plus c. So, this term you can see it becomes free from I. So, we can take it out. So, that is becoming q plus k minus p minus 1 c k divided by m plus n c m. So, this second one, this is I plus p minus 1 c I, then this is m plus n minus I minus k minus q, c m minus I minus k. On this we apply this formula. Let me write that formula here. We have a plus k minus j minus 1 c k minus j, j is equal to 0 to k into b plus j minus 1 c j, that is equal to a plus b plus k minus 1 c k. So, this becomes simply equal to then q plus k minus p minus 1 c k, m plus n minus k minus q plus p c m minus k divided by m plus n c m plus n c m. But if you see, this is also the probability of u q minus p is equal to k. We can look at the distribution that I derived for u I here, that is equal to j by m is equal to m plus n minus I minus j c m minus j I plus j minus 1 c j. So, here if I put I is equal to q minus p and j is equal to k, then I get exactly this quantity. So, this proves that the distributions of u q minus u p and u q minus p is same. That means, it is dependent upon the difference. Now, let us consider the moments of u I u j. We derive the moments of u I and u j. Of course, we consider the case when f is equal to g. When f is not equal to g, then only expressions can be written, but here we can derive the exact values. So, expectation of u I, that is expectation of f m of y I, we can consider it as expectation of expectation f m y I given y I. Okay. So, what we are doing here, that here the sample, the first sample and the second sample both are involved here. So, expectation means it is expectation with respect to both the distributions of f and g. So, we do it iteratively. We firstly condition on y I. So, when we condition on y I, then it will become the expectation with respect to the x sample, and after that we will do the second one. Now, if y I is fixed, then this is the empirical distribution function, and that we know it is unbiased for the population CDF. Now, this quantity is nothing but expectation of u I, that is the u I of the not this u I. This u I is actually the one which we derived as the ith order statistics from a uniform distribution. So, this quantity, okay, let me call it u I star, that is the ith order statistics from uniform 0 1. This we have already seen, it is equal to I by n plus 1, because for the order statistics from the uniform distribution, we have seen that it is a beta distribution with parameters I minus 1, with parameters I and n minus I plus 1. So, the mean will become I divided by I plus n minus I plus 1, that is n plus 1. So, it is equal to I divided by n plus 1. Similarly, if I consider variance of u I, we can consider it as variance of expectation of f m y I given y I plus expectation of variance f m yi given yi. Once again this inner term will become f of yi, and this term, as we can see, the distribution of fm x that we have seen, it is binomial distribution. We have derived it in the previous class. Let me just show the result once again, that we had obtained the distribution of m f m x as a binomial distribution, and from here the variance of f m x was f x into 1 minus f x by m. So, if we use this, then this is becoming equal to f of y I into 1 minus f of y I divided by m. Now, this term is turning out to be the variance of the ith order statistics from the uniform distribution. Now, variance in a beta distribution, the formula is known. So, it is becoming I into n minus I plus 1 divided by n plus 1 square into n plus 2. In the second case, so 1 by m we can keep outside, and this is becoming expectation of f of y I, that is I by n plus 1, and this one will come the second moment, that is I into I plus 1 divided by n plus 1 into n plus 2. So, anyway this terms can be simplified, and we get it as equal to I into n minus I plus 1 divided by n plus 1 square n plus 2 m plus n plus 1 divided by m. So, we are able to derive the mean and the variance of u I, of course, under the condition that when the two populations are the same. In a similar way, we can try for the covariance term also. Let us look at covariance between u I and u j. Of course, here I am taking I not equal to j. So, without loss of generality, let us take say I is less than j. So, that is covariance of f m of y I, f m of y j. So, that is equal to, once again we can write it as covariance of expectation plus expectation of covariance. So, this one will become given y I, and this one will become expectation of f m of y j given y j plus expectation of covariance between f m y I, f m y j, this is given y I y j. So, this is equal to covariance between. So, you look at the first term here, expectation of f m y I given y I, then this will become f of y I, second term will become f of y j, and the next one is the, now this type of term also we have seen, because if I look at two of them, then this is becoming f m of f of y I into 1 minus f of y j. So, it will become expectation of this divided by m. Okay. So, now these are the order statistics ith and jth from the uniform distribution. So, the formula for the covariance we have derived earlier, I into n minus j plus 1, n plus 1 square into n plus 2, 1 by m I divided by n plus 1 minus I into j plus 1 divided by n plus 1 into n plus 2. So, after simplification this turns out to be I into n minus j plus 1 divided by n plus 1 square into n plus 2, m plus n plus 1 divided by m. When let us also look at the coefficient of correlation between u I and u j, then that is equal to covariance divided by the square root of the variances. So, it is becoming I n minus j plus 1 divided by n plus 1 square into n plus 2, m plus n plus 1 by m divided by So, you can easily see that these terms will get cancelled out and we are left with here simply I into n minus j plus 1 divided by j into n minus I plus 1. So, we are able to completely determine the moment structure of the distributions of u I and also joint distributions of u I u j, and we have seen without the bracket and with the bracket also. Now, we will see the applications of this in certain two sample testing problems. Some applications of these terms. So, let us go to our original assumption that we are having independent random samples x 1, x 2, x m from say f x and y 1, y 2, y n from say g y respectively. Let us assume that let xi denote the median of f and say eta denote the median of g. So, for the two distributions I am considering the medians. Like in the classical parametric inference problems, we assume the means to be mu 1, mu 2 and variances to be sigma 1 square, sigma 2 square. Then our problem of interest is to test whether mu 1 is equal to mu 2 or sigma 1 square is equal to sigma 2 square, etc. So, similarly, when we are considering the non-parametric situation, we would be interested in testing whether xi is equal to eta or xi is less than eta or xi greater than eta, etc. So, we can consider this hypothesis problem. xi is equal to eta against say xi less than eta. So, it could be also xi greater than eta or xi not equal to eta, etcetera. All these type of testing problems can be considered. Let me call it H2 and this as H3. One of the first tests is actually called Matheson median test. In this test, what we do? We define T1 to be the number of x's which are less than or equal to median of y's. So, actually depending upon what is the number of observations in y second sample. So, n could be odd, n could be even. So, n is odd, then you will have a unique median. So, how many x's are less than that? That is exactly given by this ui term. So, we can consider it as m times, that is u n plus 1 by 2, that is same as f of f m y n plus 1 by 2 if n is odd, and it is equal to y n by 2 plus y n by 2 plus 1 divided by 2 if n is even. Now, in the case of odd, actually the distribution of this has already been worked out. We already know its mean and variance under the null distribution. Let me write that here. When n is odd, let us find the null mean and variance of T. So, we consider expectation of T1 under H naught, that is expectation of T1 when H naught is true. That means, when f is equal to g. When f is equal to g, that means we can consider this equal to given H naught, that is equal to m times n plus 1 by 2 divided by n plus 1, that is equal to m by 2, and variance of T1, of course, it is equal to m square n plus 1 by 2 n minus n plus 1 by 2 plus 1 divided by n plus 1 square into n plus 2 m plus n plus 1 by m. So, that is equal to m into m plus n plus 1 divided by 4 into n plus 2. So, this is the mean and this is the variance under the null hypothesis. So, certainly we can consider the normalization actually, and of course, I know the distribution of T1 also here. So, we can actually check whether it is too large or too small. We can also apply this Neyman Pearson type of thing. That means, we can consider the probability of type 1 error is equal to alpha, and then we find the value of the critical point. So, we can consider say we reject H naught in favor of H1 if T1 is too large, and we can also define reverse of this, that is in favor of H2 if T1 is too small, and in favor of H3 if T1 is either too large or too small. See, we can actually consider T2 as the number of x's greater than or equal to yn, that is m minus number of x's which are less than or equal to yn, that is equal to m minus m fm of yn, that is equal to m times 1 minus un. That is equal to m by n plus 1. Variance of T2 is equal to m square n minus n plus 1 divided by n plus 1 square into n plus 2, m plus n plus 1 by m, that is equal to m n into m plus n plus 1 divided by n plus 1 square into n plus 2. So, one can use this also. This T2 is called a Rosenbaum statistic 1. So, we can actually do the testing based on this also. For example, here it is greater. So, if it is in the reverse way, you can consider that if T2 is small, then we reject H naught in favor of H1. So, you can see it is reverse of this, T1 is too large and here it is T2 is small, and reverse will happen against H2 if T2 is large and in favor of H3 if T2 is too large or too small. The drawback with this two statistic that I defined, that is Matheson median test, is that this is based on median only, and in the Rosenbaum this is based on only the largest one. Now, one can think of using all of them, then that is called Mann-Whitney statistic. Mann-Whitney U statistic, that is based on the summation of all such terms, that is number of x's less than or equal to yj, and you sum from j is equal to 1 to n, then that is equal to summation j is equal to 1 to n. Actually, here if I put this or if I put this, they are same, number of x's less than or equal to yj, because when I am summing over all j's, so then whether it is ordered or unordered, both are same. So, both of them I can write like this. Now, the advantage of this term is that it is simply f times sigma of uj, and if I consider this form, then it is m times sigma fm of yj, that is equal to m times sigma of uj. So, this is now known as the Mann-Whitney U statistic. We can consider the mean and variance under the null hypothesis, then it is simply equal to m times j is equal to 1 to n. We know that this was equal to half. So, it is m n by 2, and if we look at the variance term, variance under the null hypothesis, then it is equal to m square summation variance of uj plus double summation covariance of uj uk. J is not equal to k. So, that is equal to m square, and this is n, and we actually derived these expressions in the previous lecture. Let me just recall those expressions here. So, you can see here the expression for this was half and the expectation of this was derived, variance was derived as 2 plus m, that is m plus 2 by 12 m. So, these expressions were derived and also the covariance term was derived here. The covariance term of this was equal to 1 by 12 m. So, we substitute all these terms here, m plus 2 by 12 m plus n into n minus 1 by 12 m. So, we can simplify these terms easily. This is equal to m plus n plus 1 divided by 12. Once again, if there are more number of x's which are less than or equal to yj's, then the median of x's will be greater than the median of y's. So, for large value of u, we will be rejecting h naught in favor of h 1, and similarly for the other hypothesis. So, in a similar way, we have another one which is called again Rosenbaum. I had defined 1 that was T 2 here. Now, I am defining T 3. This I am defining as the number of x's less than or equal to y 1 plus the number of x's greater than y n. This one you can see it is more useful for the range. That means, if we are checking the variability or the scale parameter, then this will be more useful. For example, if there are more x's which are outside of y 1 and y n, then certainly it means that the variability of x will be more than the variability of y's. Okay, so, this can be written as m times u 1 plus n times m times 1 minus u n, 1 plus u 1 minus u n. Of course, under this is equal to m 1 plus 1 by n plus 1 minus n by n plus 1, that is equal to 2 m divided by n plus 1. The variability of this can be calculated, that will become m square plus variance into variance of this plus variance of this and covariance term here. So, this is becoming m square variance of u 1 plus variance of u n minus twice covariance of u 1 u n. So, we can substitute the expressions for these here and we will get m square n minus 1 plus 1, since it is the first one. So, 1 into that divided by n plus 1 square into n plus 2 m plus n plus 1 by m plus n into n minus n plus 1 divided by n plus 1 square into n plus 2 m plus n plus 1 by m minus 2 into 1 into n minus n plus 1 divided by n plus 1 square into n plus 2 m plus n plus 1 by m. So, this term is common, and then you have n plus 1 square by n plus 2, that is also common. So, you get m into m plus n plus 1, and after simplification this term becomes 2 n minus 2. So, 2 times n minus 1 divided by n plus 1 square into n plus 2. So, once again we are able to obtain the null mean and variance of this thing. And for testing purpose, this is more, as I mentioned, it is more useful for the scale. So, if we get a large value of T 3, it means that the range of first sample is more than the range of the second sample. If T 3 is too small, then it means that the range of the second distribution is more than the range of the first distribution. So, this can also be used for the testing for the range. In general, we can define linear rank statistics two samples of sizes m and n are there. Let us consider the composite sample size is equal to capital N, and let us define h n x is the sample distribution function or empirical distribution function based on the combined sample of x's and y's. That means, I consider all the observations together and then I look at the order statistics of them, not separately. It is not that I write x 1, x 2, x m first and then y 1, y 2, y n. I merge the two and then I consider the full ordering, and from that I define the empirical distribution. That means, if I consider n times h n of y j, then it is the number of x's and y's which are less than or equal to say y j. So, if I consider n times h n of y j minus j, then it is equal to number of x's less than or equal to y j, that is equal to m times u j, which is the one defined earlier, that was m times f m of y j. So, I have established a relationship between the empirical distribution of the first sample with the empirical distribution function of the combined sample in terms of the value of y j. So, in general we say that any linear rank statistics is a function of h n x. In other words, it is also a function of f m y j. Next, we define prediction intervals. As before, we have the two samples, that is x 1, x 2, x m is a random sample from f x, y 1, y 2, y n is a random sample from g y, and we assume that these are independently taken. Let us consider, say, g be a function of y 1, y 2, y n, and L and U be functions of x 1, x 2, x m. Then, if we have the statement like that, means probability of g y lying between two functions of x, if this is equal to 1 minus gamma, then we say that LU is 100 1 minus gamma percent prediction interval for G. Now, let us consider the interpretation of this. See, we have already seen the confidence intervals. In the confidence intervals, the parametric term is to be fixed. So, we find out the probability of two statistics including that parametric value equal to 1 minus alpha. So, that is called the 100 1 minus alpha percent confidence interval. Now, there is a difference in the terminology. So, in general it could be that we may be using, see, there may be some relationship between the two distributions. So, we may be using the relationship to predict the value of a function of second sample based on the values of the first sample. So, this is basically based on the relationship that is available between the two. Let us take the special case. Let f be equal to g, then how do we look at it? So, let us consider, say, L to be the R 1th order statistics and U to be, say, R 2th order statistics. So, we consider, say, prediction interval for at least k of y 1 y 2 y n, that is to find R 1 and R 2 such that probability of at least k of y 1 y 2 y n are between x R 1 and x R 2, that is equal to 1 minus gamma. At least k of y 1 y 2 y n are between x R 1 and x R 2, and I want this probability to be 1 minus gamma. So, we want prediction interval for this. So, this is something like a location problem, but this is more general kind of location problem. See, if we consider parametric inference, then we consider, say, if I am having two samples, then we can consider theta 1 minus theta 2. So, a confidence interval for that. We can consider confidence interval for linear combination of theta 1 theta 2. We can also consider linear say like sigma 1 by sigma 2, that means some sort of parametric function. When we are not having that, then we are considering order statistics here, and on the basis of that we are talking about some sort of location problem. So, let us consider then n times f n x that is equal to number of y's less than or equal to x. Then we can consider n times f n of x r 1, then that is equal to number of y's less than or equal to x r 1. Then we can also consider n times f n of x r 2, that is equal to number of y's less than or equal to x r 2. So, here f n is now denoting the empirical distribution function based on the second sample rather than the first sample. So, n times f n x r 2 minus n times f n x r 1, that is the number of y's between x r 1 and x r 2. So, we want to find R 1 and R 2 such that probability of n times Fn x R2 minus n times Fn x R1, that is greater than or equal to k, that is equal to 1 minus gamma. Now, the expressions for this is, it is simply UR2 minus UR1 greater than or equal to n times. So, I can divide here, that is equal to 1 minus gamma. We have seen that the distribution of the difference is same as the u of uq minus up has the same distribution as uq minus p. So, that is equal to 1 minus gamma here. So, this is nothing but sigma probability of u R2 minus R1 is equal to some I by n, where I is equal to k to n, that is equal to 1 minus gamma. The distribution of this is known to us. So, we substitute this value, it is turning out to be simply equal to I is equal to k to n m plus n minus R2 plus R1 minus I C n minus I, R2 minus R1 plus I minus 1 C I divided by m plus n C n, that is equal to 1 minus gamma. So, from the tables of the factorials or hypergeometric distribution, then this can be calculated here. So, basically this is hypergeometric here. This is m plus n C m, that is also same as m plus n C n. So, both are same, therefore, this is a proper hypergeometric term here. In a similar way, I can consider prediction interval ith order statistics from the second sample, say. That means, we want now R1 and R2 such that probability of x R1 less than or equal to y I less than or equal to x R2 is equal to 1 minus gamma. Let us take here empirical distribution function . Then this is nothing but R1 by m less than or equal to ui less than or equal to R2 by m, that is equal to 1 minus gamma. The distribution of this is known. So, it is simply reducing to simply m plus n minus I minus j, m minus j, I plus j minus 1 c j divided by m plus n c m from R1 to R2. Similarly, we can consider prediction interval for at least j minus I plus 1 of y's. So, we want R1 and R2 such that probability of the interval x R1 to x R2 contains at least j minus I plus 1 of y's, that is equal to 1 minus gamma. That is probability that x R1 less than or equal to yi less than or equal to yj less than or equal to x R2, it is equal to 1 minus gamma. So, Fm of x r1 less than or equal to Fm of yi less than or equal to Fm of yj less than or equal to Fm of x r2, where Fm is denoting the empirical distribution function of x sample. So, this is nothing but r1 by m less than or equal to ui less than or equal to uj less than or equal to r2 by m, that is equal to 1 minus gamma. So, we can consider it as a double summation. Probability of ui is equal to some k by m and uj is equal to some t by m, where t is equal to say r1 to r2 and k is equal to r1 to t, that is equal to 1 minus gamma. The joint distribution of ui and uj has been obtained. So, it is nothing but k plus I minus 1 c k m plus n minus t minus j c m minus t minus k plus j minus I minus 1 c t minus k divided by m plus n c m t is equal to r1 to r2, k is equal to r1 to t, that is equal to 1 minus gamma. So, this is the bivariate hypergeometric type of term here, and once again from the tables of factorials or the tables of bivariate hypergeometric, this can be evaluated. I have given here some elementary applications of this statistics which are based on the empirical distribution function. So, we have the let me summarize. I have given here several applications here. One is to find out the tests for the comparison of the medians. I also mentioned that one of them can be used for the scales also, that means for the range. We have also defined what is known as the prediction interval. So, when we have the two samples, then what is the use of the prediction interval? That means, based on two values of the first sample or order statistics from the first sample, I can predict something about the value of the random variable. So, basically we are talking about the probability that with this much probability we can say that this value will lie in this interval. So, in this one I discussed several of them. For example, what is the prediction interval for y is I is, what is the prediction interval for at least j minus I plus 1 of y is, what is the prediction interval for at least k of y 1, y 2, y n, etc. So, these different type of formulae, they are useful for various type of non-parametric location or scale parameter problems. We will talk more about this in the next lecture. Now, there is another problem that is very commonly used by all the people working in different areas of science and engineering, that is, given a data, how to decide that which particular distributional model will be useful. One of the most popular applications or test for this is known as the chi-square test for goodness of fit, which is originally given by Karl Pearson. So, I will talk about that. Later on, another powerful test was given by Kolmogorov and Smirnov. So, in the next lecture, I will be discussing both these tests for fitting of a distribution. So, they are called goodness of fit tests, and as you can see that the structure of this test is extremely simple. They are not dependent upon what is the original distributional model, only what assumption we are making, it is dependent upon that. So, in the next lecture we will be discussing these.